Welcome to the Bree Pod. I'm here with Noelle LaTrace, spiritual mentor. Hi, Noelle.
Hi, Bree.
I'm super excited that you came and joined me here today. I just love who you are as a person. Your soul is just so beautiful, and you have been through a lot in life. And you've also helped a lot of people too. So tell me Tell me about you.
So I am from Akwesasne, which is an Indian reservation in upstate New York. Um, I grew up with a single mom, an absent father, my grandparents. I was an only child for a really long time. Um, I'm still a little nervous.
That's
Um,
okay.
but I have done a lot of work in and out of the community of Akwesasne and the surrounding communities. I worked as a youth worker for a really long time. I did boys and girls clubs. I worked as a youth advocate. I worked directly with foster care with the YAP program. And then I moved to Florida, and I'm just kind of trying out new things for myself because I have a bigger vision.
That's awesome. And I love that you have had such a huge role with the youth. What led you to working with the youth?
So again, like I said, I was an only child. So I think that a lot of that stemmed from being with myself for so long, and having a single teenage mother. We grew up together. So I think that working with youth is just something that I'm drawn to because it was just it was just always there. I'm not really sure. There's just something about innocent little souls who need appropriate and proper guidance because it's just not always there for them. And I just feel like I could like I'm a really good fit in a place like that because I was a wild kid. I was an only child, but I was a wild child. And I think that has a lot to do with I was spoiled. I was spoiled. um, but I just love working with kids because they are they are the future, and if they're stuck in these weird patterns that we see in the world right now, like where's the hope? So there's just got to be positivity somewhere for them, and I like to think that I'm that role. So just very drawn to that.
I love that. And I think something needs to be said for the fact that you're saying that you're a wild child, but look at you now. So what
I know.
happened? What brought you from wild to here? How did you get there?
Um, so I let me go back in some time here.
Okay.
We're gonna take a trip.
Okay.
um, I I for the longest time really craved attention, and even though I was an only child, again, I was raised from a single teenage mother who was growing up at the same time that I was. So because my mom had me she was pregnant at 17, had me at 18, we did a lot of growing up together. And with that, I had different phases of a mother. Um, my mom was great. She was always there. We had some issues throughout my entire life. And again, I think that's just because we grew up together. Um, I didn't have my biological father around. I had his parents and my aunt and like my cousins, but that's all of that side that I really knew. Um, so I think that is where it all started. I just felt like I needed to be loved, and I didn't care how or where I got it from. So I went crazy. I went wild, and it started young. I was like 11, trying to figure out life when 11-year-olds really shouldn't be trying to figure out life like that. And then the older I got, the more attention I craved. And that's kind of when I branched into like my sexuality and figured out that I actually am attracted to women. I was in a really long-term relationship with a man. We were high school sweethearts. Like, we carried on to that, but it just wasn't for me. He was a really great guy, just was not for me. So I branched off, and that's, I think, when things really got dark, because my family was not for me being with women. I was boy crazy my entire life, and then I just kind of did a switch. So I think that they were standoffish about it, and that pushed me away from it. So then I stayed in the gray area of like the in between. Like, I was with guys and girls, just wasn't working for me. So then in college, I just went mad. I was suicidal. I was back and forth in relationships. I was in love triangles, and again, anything and everything just for some attention. And it just was not good. I got in a relationship where I was engaged after only 2 weeks of knowing this woman. We were together for a couple years. And then that's when I met my ex. And I grew up with my mom giving me the same 5 rules. And if you ask any of my friends from like, middle school, high school, they knew the rules were no drinking, no smoking, no sex, no drugs, no rock and roll. Those were the rules that I had to live by. I wasn't allowed to experiment in things because I was terrified that my mom would find out and all this crazy stuff. So I was hardcore against drugs, drinking, smoking pot. I mean, anything and everything. I was against abortion. I was a very closed-minded person. And when I got with my ex, I left that engagement and got with her, and she was in a rehab program. Again, the first time I had ever experienced anything like that. So I'm not a judgy person. I don't care what you do, what you've been through, where you came from, just as long as you show me respect and love. Like, that's all I care about. And that was in 2015. And I finally left and was done in 2017. And it was 2 years of addiction and abuse. I got addicted to drugs. I dropped out of college. I had 1 semester left in chemical dependency counseling, and I dropped out because I got addicted to crack cocaine. I don't really know what did that and why that was kind of the life that I spiraled into, but it was, and it was scary. It got abusive. It got toxic, and I lost all my family. I didn't have any friends. And when I finally escaped from that one, when enough was enough for me, I rebutted and rebounded to somebody even worse than the first one. And I knew exactly what she was about. Again, I was lonely. I was coming off of drugs. I was confused. I didn't have anybody. So I rebutted to worse. And it was, sorry for all the TMI, but it was supposed to be just a one-night stand, and it was not. I tried to bring her home the next day, and that was the first time she ever put her hands on me, because I didn't fight to make her stay. I just wanted her to go home. So I got trapped into a relationship that I did not want. And it was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. So I really think that's where it all started. Was I was just lonely, and I was just very lonely as a kid. and experimental and confused, sad, depressed, abandoned. I just had all of these feelings, and I turned to food my whole life, but then I turned to drugs and toxic relationships.
I appreciate you sharing your vulnerability on here, and you know, I want to send you like hugs through the Zoom here. But like, yeah, I think that what's beautiful about you is, I don't know if you are seeing it yet, but like just your strength, of, even though maybe during that time you didn't feel strong, you still have a strength, because I know that it's very hard, because every day you have to face that struggle with drugs, you know, that addiction. Every day, you have to face that like struggle of like of life, like you were talking about. And so I appreciate that you're still here with us.
Thank you.
And your strength is just so admirable. Oh my gosh, admirable. Serious, this word is bumbling me. But truly though, it's super powerful to see that, and I hope that you see that in yourself. I, as you know, I've also been in a abusive relationship, and I know that when you're in it, it's completely different when you're on the outside looking in, and you're like, whoa, how did that go from here 0 to 100 so quick? But like I said, your strength is just awesome. So how long, if it's okay to ask, have you been sober from drugs?
So when I was with the first, I'm just going to call it toxic 1 and toxic 2, because that's just like not, so I don't disclose anything.
Okay.
So toxic 1, even though I had left that relationship, toxic 2 was no better in that category. I was actually forced to use drugs even when I didn't want to use them. Drugs that I had never tried, that I didn't know how they'd make me feel. Anyway, I've been sober since January 11th of 2018. That was the day that my mom saved my life from that relationship, quote unquote. That was the day that she saved my whole life. We actually had a code word in play, because she knew that this was not something that I wanted to stay in, but I was scared for my family if they were to interfere. So that was the only reason I stayed. She even went back and forth to jail a couple times, and I still went back because I was fucking terrified. I was scared. She knew where all of my family was. Like, you've been there. Like, that's terrifying to think about. I was held hostage in my apartment for 2 weeks, and enough was enough. I had no TVs. They were all smashed. My phone was on its last leg. But I had finally had enough, and it was like midnight. She dragged me by the head of hair out of bed because she thought I was ignoring her, but I was sleeping. And it was just a mess. So I texted my mom the code word, and I tried to call, and she did not answer. And I genuinely didn't think that I was going to wake up the next day. I really thought that was going to be it for me. But then at 6:30 in the morning, my mom's pounding on that door. And when I open it, I swear to God, she had a 10-foot crowbar in her hand, ready to swing. She thought she was coming into the apartment to find me dead. But when she opened the door, I can still see the look on her face. And her exact words were, "You're still alive." Because she thought she was going to find me dead too. So I ran to the car. She called tribal police. Thank the whole world for them, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have been as safe, you know. And since that day, I had an order of protection. I was safe. I was good. And in the midst of all that, I had actually met the woman I'm now married to. I actually met her through Toxic One, believe it or not. And it was, I think, a blessing in disguise. A blessing in disguise. She ended up, I got a hold of her after, ignoring her for months because I was in this horrible place and I was scared. I was scared to reach out. Once I was finally out, I texted her and I said, I'm safe. I'm okay. Everything's okay. Well, literally a week and a half later, she bought me a one-way ticket to Florida to save me because I was still scared. I was so scared to be home because anywhere I went, they were there. I say they because there was two that I was trying to come down from. I was coming off of drugs. I was coming off of anxiety and adrenaline, fear. I was coming off of a lot of things. So my mind didn't really settle until probably, June of 2018. But yeah.
Wow. You had me, I'm over here like trying to hold my tears back. I just think that just I'm happy that your mom and you created that code word to get you out of that situation, because it just it is so scary that both of you had that thought that you could be gone.
Yeah.
And I just want to send you so much love to you, because like I said, it's so much strength that you have. And because when it comes to like the narcissist or the abuser, they try to take control of everything, everybody, everyone, and they befriend people that believe them because they have that charm, like that thing about them, or they know people that is not helpful,
Yeah.
So like I just really think you need to hear that you have a lot of strength for getting out, being able to tell your mom this, because a lot of people are so scared they won't even make a code word. And so happy that travel police was there to protect you, because that's something that I think is important when you can have the law, back you up too.
Yeah.
Um, so now you're in Florida, and I know for myself that even though I'm like in Oregon, I'm having I have a beautiful man in my life. I'm now going through the healing stages. How is that going for you? Are you
So healing is an ongoing process.
yeah.
And I am actually very thankful that I am able to have my wife, and she allows me to find my inner power, find my inner strength. She's allowed me to heal from the moment that I entered Florida to be with her. um, I think that this is a new kind of relationship for her as well, because without disclosing too much, she's also been in an abusive relationship. She was actually married to a man. He was not a very good soul at the time, and it just brought her down too. She has a lot of personal issues also. So it's nice to be able to have somebody who understands everything that I was feeling, everything I was going through. I can talk to her about literally anything, and that just makes life so much more simple. To have somebody that loves you and respects you and appreciates you, while also giving you your time for you to heal, to become one and love yourself. Because that's what I really struggled with my whole life, was my inner love. And I, to this day, have still never really been alone. So because I was in those relationships and I jumped from that to be with Kristen, my wife, I still have never been alone. And for a little while that really bothered me, because a lot of people talk about how, well, you should really be by yourself, find your independence before you get married, before you do these things. But the more that I think about it, like that everyone has their own set of rules and their own boundaries and their own set, like I said, your own set of rules. And I don't have to follow anyone else's. And I need to remember that. One person's path does not mean it's going to be mine. And I did get lucky to find somebody that loves me and is definitely rooting me on. She's my biggest supporter. I walked through the door covered in sweat because I went to work out, and she's the first person to tell me how hot I am. And she sees me outside meditating, and she even picks up on things like she knows which crystal I want if I ask for it. She'll be the first one to ask for a card. So she's very, very supportive, and I'm super fucking thankful to have her.
Absolutely. I definitely want to add that something I learned with my own husband is that I used to think that I needed to like feel codependent with people. Like I thought that that's like what the love was, because I feel like after you're in those abusive relationships, you tend to kind of rely on them to make decisions because they're forcing their decisions onto you. And when I started dating Jeremy and getting to know him, he actually taught me, which, because I was also told the same thing, that like you need to have that time, that space. And to be honest, the time I actually started hanging out with Jeremy compared to the last ex was like a month or so. And even though we didn't have like any terminology on our relationship, it was still getting to know somebody within too short of a time if you're talking to somebody, But through Jeremy, I learned that you can still be an individual, but be a power team at the same time, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
And he has done the same in of like letting me heal and letting me find my strength and confidence, but still be there for me at the same time. So like, I completely get what you're saying. I don't agree with everybody. I think that yes, there's habit. It's just learning that you're allowed to be an individual, and it's okay in a relationship. I mean, obviously, there's like the boundaries of what's inappropriate and what's not appropriate, but like to your relationship, because that's between you and your partner. But like, I always thought that you had to be codependent to be in a relationship, and you can be an individual. And I think that's beautiful that that's happening for you now, because you're getting that chance, even though you're not by yourself, you are learning to be by yourself. If
Right.
that makes sense, like you're still doing that.
Yeah, no, it took me, I mean, we'll be married 2 years on the 22nd, your birthday. But we just celebrated 3 years together in January. And it really wasn't until we moved to Florida that I really created boundaries for myself. So I think that was a spin for our relationship too, because I mean, for 2 years, she's used to me being one way. But once we got here, it was like a relief, because I had no one here that I had to feel anxious about running into at Walmart, or feel like I have to like look behind my shoulder because I didn't know who'd be behind me. I got to come here and feel safe with no anxiety, no fear. So I think that moment is really, moving here was the best thing that I ever could have done. And that's when I really started to work on myself, and I really started to create those boundaries for me as a person. And because there's me and I'm in a marriage, that's boundaries for my marriage too.
Yeah.
And they're really important. And as shitty as it was that I did it like 2 years into our relationship, I'm still glad that I'm setting them, because where I am now to where I was when I first got with her is like a whole new person. And I will never go back to that person. I will never carry my own toxic traits onto this marriage. I will never do it. And although I already have, that's my boundaries. I'm retraining my brain to remember that this relationship is not the other ones. Who I am is not who I used to be. So it's all about growth and progressing, and boundaries is literally like the word of the year.
Yes,
They're
it really
so
is.
important.
Yes, absolutely. Everything that you're saying is exactly how I feel as well. Like, the person that I was when I first was with my husband is completely different. And I think that's the beautiful thing about life, is that you're always growing in all relationships. And some relationships have to die off and go away because that boundary had to be like, hey, you did not serve me. So and not in a selfish manner, but it's like, hey, this is not good. So I think that's beautiful that you have done that for yourself, and that you're setting these boundaries, and that she's, going with you down that route. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you, I love asking this to everybody because I'm always curious, but like, if you could go back and you could speak to younger Noelle, what advice would you give her?
Love yourself before you can love anyone else. And those are actually my mom's words. I was kind of telling you before, my mom was a counselor for a really long time. So a parent that's a counselor knows everything. And that advice giving and the picking to know everything came out in my home as well. I was given great advice. I had great role models. And even though I didn't listen to her advice then, I am totally hearing it all now. And that would be the number one advice that I would take and give myself, would be love yourself before you can love anyone else, because that's really important.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that, and sharing a piece of you, because like I said, regardless if you're open or not, it's such a vulnerability.
Yes.
And I'm just so honored to have you on here on the Brie Pod. I hope you get to, or not get to, but want to come back.
Oh yes, girl, I'll be back.
So before I let you go, I wanted you to share, where can people find you on social media?
So my personal Facebook is just Noelle LaTrace. And I do have Instagram and a Facebook group that I created, but have not yet launched. But you can still find them. It's Be Well with Noelle, and the letters or whatever, like the username is BWWN.XO. So that's where you can find me for those. I will be launching my future business.
Yes.
Hopefully in February. That is my goal. That's what I see. So be on the lookout for that.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. And I look forward to also following your journey. I think that you have done so many beautiful things and have so many lives to change and help. And so I really do appreciate you coming on here and sharing that piece. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so glad you had me, and you are doing the same. You're changing lives just as much. And talking to you just released so much that you don't even understand. So this was a great therapy session.
Oh, yay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yes.
I wanted to leave off with the affirmations. So I know that you're not new to this because you were binge watching the Pre-Pod or binge hearing. So as you know, for those of you that resonate between 1 and 3, your affirmation will be provided. So for those of you that resonate with group number 1, your affirmation is, I have been given endless talents, which I begin to utilize today. For those of you that resonate with number 2, your affirmation is, I possess the qualities needed to be extremely successful. And then for those of you that resonate with number 3, your affirmation is, I acknowledge my own self-worth. My confidence is soaring. And with that, you are loved, you are worthy, you are cherished, and I am proud of you. Until next time on the Pre-Pod. Bye.
Bye.